Today on Locked On Rockies, let's talk Tulo on 2/22/22.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today. I am Paul Holden, your host and chef of this. That's a different podcast I host. I am Paul Holden, your Rockies fan extraordinaire. You can catch all my work at paulfholden.com. I work in radio. I'm a voiceover artist. I'm an on-air talent. I'm a producer, and I'm a die-hard Colorado Rockies fan. And we've been bringing you daily Rockies talk from this guy for almost a year now. Our anniversary will be in May. Today on Locked On Rockies, we are going to talk about the status of the lockout, go over to an article from ESPN, getting the latest about the lockouts, which, folks, we are still going to see more cancellations of spring training. Apparently, the sides are very far away. And on this 2/22/22, we're going to talk about some of the best twos in baseball. And I think it's pretty obvious who we're going to spend a lot of the time talking about. But there's a couple others that you might see that deserve some recognition. But first, let's head over to ESPN and read a little bit about the lockout, the status of the lockout. As the players, they beefed up their negotiations. They're trying to do stuff. They're trying to figure out what's going on with this lockout. Jesse Rogers writes, 5 hours in the boardroom on Monday, sometimes together, sometimes in their own caucus, didn't equate to major progress between MLB and the MLB Players Union as the sides remain far apart on a new collective bargaining agreement. In the offices overlooking the Springfield, pardon me, in the offices overlooking the Springfield where the St. Louis Cardinals and Miami Marlins train, leadership from both sides began what is an important week of negotiations in order to preserve opening day on March 31st. Already, the start of spring training has been delayed, with games postponed until at least March 5th as the owners continue to impose a lockout on players. On Monday, the league increased its commitment in a pre-arbitration pool to $20 million, an increase of $5 million since its last offer, while adding another team to the lottery in its new NBA-style draft proposal. The moves were consistent with the incremental adjustments both sides have made throughout the months of negotiation. Also on Monday, MLB withdrew its request of the union to control and potentially reduce the number of minor league paying jobs, sources told ESPN's Jeff Passan. The league could try to do it unilaterally going forward, but it won't do so in 2022, and at the moment does not have plans to pursue in 2023. Along with the withdrawal of minor league paying jobs proposal, MLB pulled its offer, limiting the number of times a player can be optioned to 5. The constant shuffling between the big leagues and AAA is a quality of life issue for players who have proposed a maximum of 4 options. Major economic issues, including the competitive balance tax, minimum salaries, and revenue sharing, weren't addressed in a meaningful way on Monday, according to sources familiar with the talks. The league believes it is the union's turn to compromise in a proposal regarding the CBT after recently tweaking its latest offer with modest-sized increases in the final years of the collective bargaining agreement. The last year would call for a first tax threshold of $222 million with stiffer financial penalties throughout the system. The union wants to see a bump up to $245 million as soon as next season's without the penalties being worse. Even with the increase in the pre-arbitration pool by the league, the sides still remain far apart on that number. The union has never dropped below asking for $100 million in any of its proposals, and in its last one, the union asked for $115 million, though it's the same proposal. It reduced the percentage of Super 2 players who would be eligible for arbitration from 100% to 80%. So there's more there that you can go. Interesting to note here. 10 players were in attendance for the meeting, including Max Scherzer, Francisco Lindor, Whit Merrifield, and Paul Goldschmidt. During time in their own caucus, players zoomed with other reps from around the country. Labor Committee Chair and Colorado Rockies owner Dick Monfort and past Chair San Diego's Padres owner Ron Fowler were in attendance as well. Union Chief Tony Clark was there, but Commissioner Bob Manfred was not. So nice little recap there from Jesse Rogers. I wanted to read that so you all can get just kind of that's the nuts and bolts. That's the nitty gritty. That's what's actually going on. And I'm going to be totally honest, when it gets down into taxes and that type of stuff, I might not be as great of an analyst. I highly, highly, highly suggest folks, and this is me just being upfront and honest. business side stuff, I am not as strong with. So it's good for you to follow the post, follow, these other people, follow a lot of great Locked On podcast hosts that really dive in and can break down the numbers. But what I'm seeing from this is the owners are trying to show good faith by changing what they want a little bit here. And now, like we read in there, that they're trying to get to the point where they want the players to compromise and they want the players to be doing this stuff. If I'm the players, I'm holding strong. I think this is the offseason that you finally get to have a little bit more of leverage as players. I think you finally get to dig deeper and you can get some stuff. You're not going to get everything you want. The owners aren't going to get everything they want. That's not how these negotiations work. They're called negotiations for a reason. The players will compromise on something. However, I think what we've seen in sports and what we've seen, and baseball, not so much, but we've seen it in basketball especially, and some football players. I mean, there's, especially today, I mean, there's all this. Aaron Rodgers posts on Instagram last night late, and I mean, the whole Twitter is on fire. I mean, obviously Broncos fans like myself are hoping what that means, but football players and basketball players are demonstrating the immense power and influence that they have. And it's only gotten more since it started rumbling a few years after Kaepernick. And now with the pandemic and everything, and with, we got to play sports during the pandemic, 60-game baseball season, bubble, you're living in a bubble, you're constant testing, all this stuff. You got to play. The people need it. Well, the players did that. They went through, they played the pandemic seasons for all the sports. They did all that. And did players get a benefit? Did minor league players get a benefit? Why? What is the true benefit from players from playing that, other than they got to get paid? Most of them are still going to get paid anyway. Now is the time to use what we've learned and this new mindset as fans, as players, as people in the post-pandemic era, where do we want the owners to have all the power? Do we want the owners to have all the say? Does all this stuff really make sense for the game of baseball? Does it make sense not letting players go into free agency until they've played 7 years committed to one team because they were drafted? Does it make sense to not, or to get rid of these backup jobs? These, I mean, and again, a good thing to put this into perspective, because another person I think you should listen to, even though I don't see the same way, is David Sampson, is on the Dan Le Batard show. And when I listen to him, it kind of makes me mad. But when I listen to him, I have to realize and I have to understand what he's saying is that's business, and that's how businesses are run. And not every team is doing the 180 minor league positions. A lot of this stuff came because we were worried about the pandemic and people coming and going and this and that. Is it necessary to keep having all that extra stuff, that extra, those extra players, those extra contracts lying around? Is it worth to invest money into prospects that aren't going to be there, that are career minor leaguers, which there are plenty? He's very honest, but his honesty is wrapped in the smarm and the slime of big business that I don't like in sports. I don't like the idea that just because a prospect in the minor leagues, that you as a multi-million, if not billion-dollar company can't support them from the bottom down. I don't think it's true. I don't think it's a bad business decision to not invest in all of your players. I'm talking about all of them. If the money is there, if these players are expected to do it, if the sacrifice to be at camp, to be at the games, all that time, all that energy, all that stuff, if that isn't respected, why would you do that? And it's blinded by a passion for the love of the game, sure. But it's just about being fair. Owners are really just rich, folks. They might have worked to get their money. They might have inherited a beef heirloom, a family, a wealth from the family. All this money after the last 2.5 years, 3 years that we've gone through, the greed of the wealthy just doesn't make any sense, because baseball owners impose this lockout, want players to compromise after 2 seasons of COVID after this. And how is Paul Goldschmidt going to sit and look at Dick Monfort in the face and say, you treated your star player the best? You are an owner that we should be looking at and respecting, because that's just not true. Paul Goldschmidt, I'm sure, sitting there is like, here are the texts from Nolan Arenado wanting out because you decided that instead of the product on the field, you were loyal to your business partners and your GM. Yeah, you knew I was going to bring it around, folks. But right? I mean, is that not if you're not Paul Goldschmidt going into labor and contract negotiations and you're looking at the guy that gave a major contract and commitment to and then traded him 2 years later, a year later, whatever it was, what does that make you feel as a player? How do you feel as a player going and talking about this when you know deep down at its core, all of those owners at any time that they want to can trade you away, and it's just business? I don't think the owners get to skate by with it's just business. It's just this. It's expensive. We got to put our money in the right place. Then don't make a 60-game season happen in the middle of the pandemic. Don't impose a lockout and then say, oh, it's me. We're not getting anything done. Games are canceled. Games are canceled because you locked the players out, owners. And games, and that's fine. You know, every game that doesn't happen is bad for players too. Every less at bat is one less at bat that we can figure out if Connor Joe is someone that's going to be in the starting lineup. If Raimel Tapia is worth going after another year or trying to figure out a trade package. Every day that we're sitting here, teams wonder who's going to be the shortstop of my team. But remember, the owners will do everything in their power to stay as powerful, if not more powerful, because that's what they want. They want the money. They want the power. They want to be in charge. Let's talk about some fun stuff. Let's mix it up. But again, lockout. They're going to be talking this week. Stuff could break. We'll see. But again, that's just kind of my 2 cents. I at this point, it's just going to play out the way it's going to play out. Games are going to be canceled. We're just going to have to roll with it. The season won't be canceled, but spring training is going to be major impacted. I don't know if opening day is going to get delayed yet, but in my eyes, a 150 game season could happen. Let's talk about fun stuff. I want to talk about Troy Tulowitzki. I want to talk about other cool people to wear the number 2 or 22 in the Colorado Rockies history. But first, I got to tell you about some great folks that make the show possible. And let's start with Built Bar. Built Bar, here's the deal. Replace the candy bars. I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. We can do it together, folks. Take the snacks, take the sweets that you know aren't adding, that are really getting in the way of what you want in terms of your nutrition goals. Get rid of them. Eat them if you know what? I'm not going to tell you to throw them away. Eat them. Get them out of the house. And then instead of getting them again, instead of getting those candy bars, instead of getting those other snacks, get Built Bars instead, because Built Bars are not only covered in 100% real chocolate, they're low calorie, high protein, and they are a better snack than a typical candy bar can be. Because typical candy bars, they can have 200 to 300 calories, 30 grams of sugar, so much stuff. But you can see all the macros of Built Bars, but most Built Bars contain 130 calories. Here's the big one for me: 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Like I said, candy bars, 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs usually. And Built Bar has so many delicious flavors that you can find. They got the marshmallow puffs if you want to mix it up on from the bars. Get kind of that marshmallowy, light, airy, tasty treat. Or get the classic Built Bar with so many delicious flavors. And you can head over to Built.com and see all the great products available for you at Built.com. Head to Built.com today, and you'll get 15% off your order when you use the promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your order at Built.com. Promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your order at Built.com. Also, folks, stop wasting time. I'm here to, if you are looking for the part to fix your car or truck, stop wasting time. Don't be driving around to all the stores. Don't be messing around. Don't be using your hard-earned time and money on just getting to the store when you can get every part for your car or truck right from your home, right from your phone at rockauto.com. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. That includes you, folks. And they have everything you could need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, new carpet, and so much more. Best part is the website is easy to use, and they have the solution for your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com. That's rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know that we sent you. Right, Locked On in there How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know us here at the Locked On Podcast Network sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts. Yes, folks, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. Let's talk about Troy Tulowitzki and those wearing number 2 in baseball. Holy smokes, was Troy Tulowitzki good. I guess my question is, because we can go over this. Let's just do some stats, I guess. Should the number 2 be retired at Coors Field? I don't know if Tulo did it. I don't know if Tulo, with being traded and this next generation is there, but boy, folks, in the MVP race twice, All-Star 5 times. No, in the MVP race 3 times, 3 years in a row from 2000 in the top 5. He was in the top 10 in 2011. Batting, man, in those years from 2009 to 2011, 297, 315, 302 batting average. Rookie season coming up here, helping the Rockies get there. Should have been Rookie of the Year that year. 291, 359, 479 yard line with an 838 OBS. Oh my gosh. And this is just offense, folks. Tulo was a legend in the field, an absolute stud. I think there's a good argument to be made that Nolan Arenado is as good as he is because of Troy Tulowitzki. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. I think when you're coming through the system and you're watching someone play an elite level of defense, Troy Tulowitzki, if healthy, could have been one of the best baseball players we have seen in the past decade. I think he was up there. I think his raw athletic ability, his willingness, his fire, his passion for the game, that player helped usher in a competitive mindset for the Rockies, a successful mindset for the Rockies. Tulo came in as a rookie and helped his team get to the World Series. Yes, Tulo played in 2006. He only played in 25 games where he batted 243, 18, 292, 609. And I mean, his batting average stayed high until really the injuries took over when he was traded. He couldn't stay healthy a lot of the time. He was missing games, especially in 2012, only played in 47, 91 games in 2014, where he was traded, and then still an all-star that season as well. I mean, folks, it was special. The Rockies have been treated to some special infielders over the year, and Tulo is one of them. There is no better Rockies player to wear the number 2 than Troy Tulowitzki. I mean, I'm sure all of you have fond memories. And to be totally honest, I wish he got to come back and do that. I'm honestly very happy that it didn't work out, but he got to get to where he wanted to, which was he played in New York. He gets to say he was a Yankee. And now Tulo's out there being a wonderful baseball coach. There was a wonderful feature, I think, in the Denver Post a little bit ago about Tulo's journey to Texas and baseball in Texas. And it's a really good one. And boy, the opportunity, the treat to be able to be taught by Troy Tulowitzki. I don't think it could be. He seemed like a player that just had not only the right mindset for the game of baseball, but the competitiveness that even when through pain just gets you there. And every time I feel like you can look back on big Rockies moments, especially in 2007 and 2009 in the playoffs and all that stuff. Every time a big moment's coming, the camera's capturing Tulo somewhere, smiling with the mullet flying in the dugout, doing something amazing. It was an absolute absolute treat to go to get Troy Tulowitzki. And then to follow it up with Trevor's story. Oh boy, spoiled at the position. There's two people we need to talk about, and we got to give a shout out to Patrick Lyons, or actually Roxpile, for putting some of these together here. But we are going to also, let's talk about them in just a second, but I got to tell you about some friends at BetOnline and some friends at MLB Prospects. Thanks for making Locked On Rockies your first listen every day. Locked On MLB Prospects, host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Also, go check out betonline.net. Football might be over for this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance, props to where to find the next coach is going to land, betonline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot, yes, the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, UFC odds, and lots more. Head to the website today. Yes, head on over to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action at betonline.net. BetOnline, where the game starts. A couple of notable 22s posted by Roxpile over there on the old interwebs. Chris Iannetta was a real solid Rocky for a good time in his life, and bounced back with the Rockies there in 2018 and 2019. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 total seasons with the Colorado Rockies. Not too stellar in terms of batting, but that's kind of what we knew. But Chris Iannetta was someone that you could kind of count on. Was someone that wasn't the worst catcher, the worst backstop that the Rockies had. But boy, struggled in the postseason mightily when he did play. In his 2 postseason appearances with the Rockies in 2018, he got 9 at-bats and went 0 for 9 with 3 strikeouts. Pretty solid as a catcher there. I don't think Chris Iannetta didn't do anything spectacular, I don't think. But Chris Iannetta was a fine Rocky and was a fine catcher. But when you're looking at greatest to wear the number 2 in Rockies, it's not even a question. That was an I wanted to pose that. Troy Tulowitzki is the greatest Rocky to ever wear the number 2 on his jersey, and probably will be for a long time. But I was never, Chris Iannetta was someone you could rely on, and was just that lack of production from the catcher position that we were getting, that lack of offense, because you just look for a good chunk of those. 260 batting average, 218, 264, 222, 197, 238. And then it's like, well, slugging 390. His slugging was going up, which was fine, and the OPS kind of was going up, and then it just really plummeted. Interesting enough, after his season in Arizona and he came back, arguably that season in Arizona might have been one of his best, if not his best season, maybe other than 2008 with Arizona. But he got that OPS back up. He got that slugging percentage back up, and he definitely increased that batting average there. The last 3 seasons of his career were actually much of an improvement after his time in the AL West with the Angels in Seattle. That was a nice little improvement. Looks like the NL West was the place to be for Chris Iannetta. And of course, the skipper, Walt Weiss, number 22 as well. Walt Weiss is an interesting, I think we'll have to talk about Walt Weiss one day, because it's an interesting thing to be in the Rockies system, liked so much as a high school coach, that you get the shot at the big leagues. So there's a couple of famous 2s out there, but boy, I nothing gets me. I love Troy Tulowitzki so much. I as much as I want to say that Ken Griffey Jr. would be the player I want to see healthy, I think as a Rockies fan, I'd want Troy Tulowitzki to have that injury-free career, because who knows? Who really knows what could have been? Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. You can go and find us on all your favorite streaming services, and we just hit 50 subscribers on YouTube. What? So we thank you for that. Hey, Coming up on the show, we're going to keep an eye on negotiations. We're going to talk a little bit about free agents. We're going to see what we can do. We're just going to keep the baseball train rolling here. Maybe see if we can't get a crossover or two going on as well. But in the meantime, we are going to wrap things up today, and you can make Locked On Bets your second listen of the day, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and daily insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts, just like this podcast and podcasts across the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Paul Holden. You can catch me at Paul Holden 33. You can subscribe to us on YouTube at Locked On Rockies, and you can follow us on Twitter at LO Rockies. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.